Assalamu alaikum, and welcome to another episode of the Chocolate Shake. Inshallah, today I'd like to deal again with the topic of love. And love is one of those serious things in our lives. It is a motivator to continue the species Homo sapiens sapien. So when we speak about love, and not in the romantic sense today, but when we speak about love, we're talking about that juice or that nectar that continues the species. We're talking about that thing that is so important to the human being that it's in almost every song, every piece of poetry. It runs through and through every religion. It is the most serious thing, or one of the most serious things on the planet Earth, is this ideal of love. So I wanted to talk about love for self today, because without love for self, you can't have a very healthy life. You can't go throughout this world. You cannot walk through the earth and be successful at anything unless you have self-love. And one of the things that I've noticed about young brothers, especially young brothers from our tribe, the Black American tribe, is that sometimes, not all the time, sometimes we have a lack of love and appreciation for ourselves. And the funny thing is, as I become older, I've noticed that in other places on the planet, people look at us as cultural leaders. People actually identify with the Black American as cultural leaders. But yet when it comes to ourselves, we somewhat look down on ourselves. We don't have the confidence. We don't have the love for self that's necessary to exude the confidence that we should have. And that's because, of course, the experiences that we went through. We never can discount our past experiences to tell us about who we are today. Like the psychologists tell us now, the past is never just left in the past. The past is in the present. So we know that we had a problem, or we have a problem with self-love, because to love oneself could actually put us in jeopardy. If you are a slave, or if you are a second-class citizen, or if you are a person who's not valued in your society, then what happens is you tend to be very careful about making sure that you express yourself, right? You're very careful about self-expression, because it could put you at danger. To express oneself could be something that's very dangerous. So what you do is, instead of having love for self, you start to look around to who could I respect, who could I love, and be safe. Where's a safe place for me to posit my love? And for the Black American, that's always been to imitate and emulate the masters. It's always been to be like the master, blending ourselves out of anything that resembles Blackness, our Africanness. Don't want contact with the African continent, don't want to have anything to do with anything that come from Blackness, because it would put you at threat. So what do you do, or what do we do? You start to imitate, you start to emulate something that's outside of yourself so that you could stay protected. And that's part of it, right? Also, there's another part that was spoken about by Dr. Amos Wilson and those types, where they spoke about the Oedipus complex. That part of the Oedipus complex, outside of the ideal that when children deal with the opposite sex, they're really dealing with their mothers. And when they're dealing with the same sex, a child dealing with their parent, that is, then there's a rivalry, right? There's a fight that's there. So for a boy child, he looks toward his mother for not only love in the safe way, but even love in the sexual context. A'udhu billah, may Allah save us from those types of ideals and those types of thinkings. I'm not saying I agree with what it is that Freud is saying, because Dr. Amos Wilson, of course, he's pointing back to Freud. That's who he's sourcing. But at the same time, we recognize that in the Oedipus complex, there is a rivalry between the father and the son. And the rivalry between the father and the son is basically the natural rivalry of the son wanting to become himself. But it's very difficult for him to become himself when he has his father right there, where the father is looking down on the son, and the father has to make sure he helps to mold out the son. And of course, the son will give some resistance to that. He doesn't want to be like his dad. He wants to be something else. He wants to be something different. But at the end of it, he knows that what his dad is trying to give him is something that's good. That's something that's healthy for him. But the natural order of things is for the son to rebel. Likewise, the daughter to the mother. There's a rebelliousness there to not be like the mother if you're a daughter, and to not be like the father if you're a son. So this is the Oedipus complex. Taking that outside of the strict family structure and looking at the Black American to the white American, or blacks in the West towards whites in the West, then we still see the white man as the father figure and the black man as the boy. And again, there's a rivalry there between the black man and the white man, right? The rivalry to not be like the father, to fight the father. But the Oedipus complex tells us that the sons, they don't raise up to fight their fathers or to kill their fathers. And in fact, they fall in line under the father's authority, begrudgingly. And they start to imitate and emulate the father to stay safe, to save their lives. All right? This is what Freud came up with the Oedipus complex. And of course, we as movement people, as believing people, would have some issue with some of that ideal, but we have to also agree that some of that is also true. So what is the Sheikh saying? In order for us to love ourselves, then we have to be very careful about the influences that are coming from other places, and we have to make a determination for ourselves of who it is that is deserving of our love, so that we can set a barometer, a scale to know what true love looks like. And once we have an idea of what true love looks like, then we are to make sure that we submit ourselves to what that is. So again, the teachings from all of the great holy scriptures and the great messengers, particularly the teaching that comes from the religion of Al-Islam, it says that we should obey Allah and we should obey the messenger. And if you read outside of the Quranic text itself, and you go to find out what does Allah mean in the Quran when he says obey Allah and obey the messenger, you'll find out that the disciples of Muhammad, on him be peace, said that obedience meant love. To obey the messenger and to obey Allah meant that you love the messenger and that you love Allah. And it's through that love of them that makes it very easy to obey. So for the people who are the movement people, or perhaps you may not be a movement, perhaps you're just a person who understands what it is the Sheikh is saying and you could appreciate the message, then we have to learn how to love God. We have to learn how to love the messenger. And we can use that as a barometer. That's the measure that we use to know how we ourselves should love the self. So now it's very easy to have self-love when you have love of God and you have love of the messenger. Because love of God and love of the messenger, that's just your safety. All that is a safety net. The love of God, the love of the messenger, that is what we need to give us hidayah, right? To give us the guidance in our lives, to make sure that we are captured in a safe space. And then we can look at that and say, okay, now I can gain self-love. I know how to love myself because Allah in the messenger is going to make it clear what love is. So now we don't have to fall into traps that have been set up by society, or we don't have to fall into these pit holes that maybe society itself, they're battling with their definitions of what love is, or they have these very skewed or unhealthy ideals of about what love is. And now we can pinpoint exactly, this comes from Allah and this comes from the messenger, and this is what love is. And based on that, now I can have a healthy sense of love for self. And this love for self now will cultivate in the mind. It will cultivate in the soul. It will cultivate the human being now to be the best version of themselves, because now they love themselves. And you can't love anybody else if you don't love yourself. So when we look at another holy book where God tells the people who are the followers of the Jewish religions and the Christian religions, it was reported that Jesus, on him be peace, had said, love your neighbor as yourself. Love your neighbor as yourself. So now, when we have a healthy self-love and we're sure about ourselves, we're flat-footed about who we are, and we have a very healthy love for self, then you can love your neighbor as yourself. And this is a protection not only for you, but it's also a protection for the neighbor. And when we have a society like this, now we can flourish. Oh my God, we can become the best of humanity. We can be the best that the human family can ever be. But all of this starts with trying to understand what this love is. Now I want to take a little break and move into another direction for a second. I bring this up today too because it's summertime and I'm watching our young people and the way they dress, the young brothers and the young sisters right out here in the streets. And I have to say it's very disappointing, especially with the women folk, because mainly men dress for utilitarian purposes. We dress because of how we have to go to work. We make our dress bend around what it is that we have to do. And a lot of times when it comes to men, our dress is going to be pretty stable, right? Very seldomly will you see a man put something on that reveals his body parts in any shameful or negative way to society. Any way that shows that he doesn't have real love for himself. Whereas I get great concern when I look at the young sisters and the way they're dressing in public. Because the way they're dressing in public, it reveals to me that they don't really love themselves. There's something's falling short about love and respect for self. And they have ideals in their head that don't match up with the natural reality of love. If you love yourself, how you treat your body. When you love yourself, how it is that you want to exude a certain image to the world. You want the world to treat you seriously and to look at you as a serious human being, as a civilized person, a moral person, a person who has something going on in their lives. And if you are not dressed appropriately, if you are exposing yourself, you're exposing your body, and you're showing your legs, your backside, your front side, these tight spandex type clothes I see women wearing. One time you would only see women wear something like that if she was working out in some gym. And now they walk through the grocery stores and through the malls and through the streets with these little spandex pants on. Sometimes they're long and sometimes they're tight, but these are short. I mean, they're always tight. Short, but this is a despicable thing that women fall into. I guess these things must feel comfortable. I don't know. I never thought that tight clothes felt comfortable for me. I'm just a regular guy, and I've always worn clothes that felt a little loose. Anytime something tightened up on my skin, I just don't feel comfortable. But apparently, maybe I have it wrong, because these women are in all of this tight spandex, walking out in this hot weather. And the way that spandex falls on their bodies, especially people from African descent, come on, sisters, with all that backside and thighs, and come on. You know how we are built as people from African descent. You know where the body fat falls on us. And then to have all that exposed to people that you don't even know in the streets shows a lack of respect, and it shows a lack of love. I don't just want to put it on respect, because of course all of this is going to fall back to love. If we love ourselves, then you care for yourself and you look out for yourself. And when we do certain things, we expose to the world, and ourselves, we should expose to ourselves, but we definitely expose to the world that we don't have love for self. So how do we correct this? How do we correct the way the young brothers are out here dressing? And some of the young sisters, or most of the young sisters are out here dressing. And how do we correct the mentality of young religious brothers and sisters who should know better, but calling themselves people of religion, and still out here with eyelashes that are way out here and fingernails way up here, right? Exposing their bodies to men, these women I'm speaking about specifically, exposing themselves to men you don't even know. Men in the streets who shouldn't even have the ability to see you that way, because you have so much value for yourself. You value yourself to the point where you don't allow foreign, strange men in the street just to look at your body because you've exposed it any type of way. And to try to fool yourself, these young sisters, right? Fooling themselves that walking through the street this way is somehow healthy and it's cool and it's all right and it's my body, right? So I could do what I want to do. Telling yourself that while you demean yourself, while you devalue yourself, and try hard to make yourself feel good about your own self-devaluation. And the OGs like myself, we look at you and we just say, what a sad, sad little creature. Because you think that you're beating your chest and you're doing something by way of trying to value yourself, when in fact, all you're doing is devaluing yourself. And you know it. And you know it. That's why when an OG like myself look at you or take a second glance at you, when you see the brothers in the street take the second glance at these sisters, the first thing they do, they start to reach the tuck. Let me pull down these shorts that are already pulled up in my backside. Let me try to pull these shorts down a little bit. Let me try to adjust this piece of cloth that I have over my breast and try to get it right and get it tight, because I think I might be showing too much. They're looking at me. Right? You can see them tucking on their skirts and tucking on their clothes when the OGs, especially the real alligators out there, start to cast those glances at them. They become very uncomfortable. And they may try to fool us about trying not to look uncomfortable or feeling uncomfortable. But we see right through you. We know that you knew when you left the house with that piece of clothing on, if we could call it clothes, that article of cloth, right? Or those articles of cloth that you draped over your backside. Now we know we can look right through you and see that you're uncomfortable about what you just did. And you came outside like that, and now you have to buck up and walk the rest of the day in it before you can get back home to change it. So I brought this up today, and I dealt with self-love, because if we don't have a healthy sense of self-love, then we'll continue to deteriorate into being something worse than animals. Because animals, they're moving on a natural line. But the human being, we have akal, we have our intelligence, and we have to learn how to use our intelligence to keep ourselves above water, right? Above being like the animal. And when we don't, we descend lower than the animal. So the Sheikh wanted to bring this out today because we're now in some of the hottest days of the summer, and I'm looking at the way that the young ones are dressing, particularly the young sisters, and the ideal of love came to me. I said, now that's a young girl who can't love herself. She cannot love herself. Or some young brother who's playing a femme role, and he's doing the same thing. He's imitating young girls in some feminine way with tight pants on or shorts that are up in his backside. This is a despicable, gross show of lack of respect for oneself and love for oneself. It is the imitation of the weak. It's the imitation of the lost. It's the imitation of the purposelessness. People have no purpose at all. And at the end of the day, it's just outright shameful. So let's get back to learning how to love ourselves. Let's break the mold. We know that we are under a certain kind of control. We understand where we come from. So when you know better, you have to do better. So let's break this idea of walking in the shadow of the master and go back to Allah and go back to the messengers so that we can have right guidance. If you liked what you heard, please give me a like for the video. And if you have not already, please subscribe to my channel. As always, everything I say on this channel, I say in love. There's no benefit for me to beat up on anybody, but there's a great benefit for me and society if we can get people to listen to what we have to say, contemplate on what it is we have to say. And even if you feel like you need to challenge it and see what our response would be to you about what it is we said. Everything we say in love. Y'all take care. Peace.